Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to be decoding some of the most powerful quotes from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. We're going to break down Scrooge's incredible transformation and give you the key insights you need not only get the story, but to absolutely crush it in your exams.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the cold, miserable Scrooge we meet in Stave 1. Then, we'll jump ahead to see his amazing transformation in Stave 5. After that, we'll connect all the dots to really understand Dickens' big message, and we'll wrap up with some key takeaways to help you write a fantastic essay.
All right, let's dive right in at the beginning, in Stave 1. To really appreciate just how much Scrooge changes, we first have to get a solid picture of the cold-hearted, isolated miser he was before that one crazy Christmas Eve.
Dickens kicks things off with this fantastic simile. It's only 4 words, but wow, it tells us so much about who Scrooge is right from the get-go.
And here's the absolute genius of this line. Solitary, that part's pretty clear, right? He is totally alone, cut off from everyone. But choosing the word oyster, that's just so clever. It gives us this image of a hard, sealed-shut exterior, but it also hints that maybe, just maybe, there's something valuable hidden deep inside. A pearl of goodness. Dickens is already foreshadowing that this guy might be able to change. And Dickens doesn't just leave it there. He really doubles down on this image of a cold, tough exterior with another brilliant simile. This just perfectly illustrates his cruel nature. Hard shows us he has zero compassion, and sharp tells us that his words and actions literally hurt other people. But again, just like with the oyster, you've got to notice the hidden potential. What is flint? It's a stone you use to create a spark. It's this tiny hint, this little glimmer of hope, that maybe, just maybe, some warmth could come from him one day.
Okay, so now we're moving from what Scrooge is like to what he actually believes. This quote is his answer when he's asked for a donation to charity, and it reveals absolutely everything about his worldview.
So the crucial thing here is how he sees the world. That word, afford, it tells us he sees being generous not as a moral duty, but as a purely financial loss. And by calling the poor idle, he's just parroting this really harsh and common Victorian belief that poor people were just lazy and had only themselves to blame. So this isn't just about Scrooge, this is Dickens holding up a mirror to a very ugly attitude in society.
And if you thought that last one was bad, well, this next line is, wow. It's probably the most chilling, most shocking thing Scrooge says in the entire book. Now, to really understand just how awful this is, you need to know a little bit of context. That phrase, surplus population, wasn't something Scrooge just made up. It's a direct reference to a very real and influential economic idea at the time from a guy named Malthus. This theory basically argued that there were too many people for the amount of food and resources, and it essentially saw the poor as, well, as a surplus, a burden on society.
It is just an incredibly dehumanizing way to think, right? It reduces actual human beings to numbers on a spreadsheet. And Scrooge's line, "they had better do it," shows this horrifying indifference to actual death and suffering. I mean, this is him at his absolute worst. And it's this exact kind of cruel thinking that Dickens is trying to tear down with this entire story.
So, okay, that's the guy we're dealing with at the start. Cold, cruel, and completely isolated. So the big question is, how on earth does a man like that possibly become the person we meet at the end? Let's find out. Let's jump ahead to Stave 5 and see the transformation for ourselves.
All right, we're fast-forwarding now to Stave 5. It's Christmas morning. And after his visits from the 3 spirits, we are introduced to a completely new man. The change it's just so dramatic, it's almost hard to believe.
I mean, just listen to the energy and the language Dickens uses here. The difference between this and the man who was hard and sharp as flint is just incredible.
You see, this isn't just a small mood change. This is a total rebirth. Comparing him to a schoolboy gives us the sense of pure, innocent joy that he had lost so long ago. And then Angel, well, that takes it to another level, suggesting he's achieved some kind of spiritual redemption. The fact that Dickens throws in 2 similes, one after the other, really just hammers home how intensely happy this man has become.
But okay, this transformation isn't just about how he feels on the inside. It immediately turns into real-world action. This promise he makes to his clerk, Bob Cratchit, is a huge moment. This one sentence completely flips his old way of thinking on its head. Remember, I can't afford to make idle people merry? Now he's actively using his money to make someone's life better. He finally gets what Dickens was trying to tell everyone, that wealth isn't for hoarding. It comes with a responsibility to care for the people around you.
And here it is. This is the ultimate proof of his redemption. This line from the very end of the story shows us the profound life and death impact of his newfound compassion.
Okay, the key thing to get here is that his actions have real power. By becoming a second father to Tiny Tim, this loving, protective person, he directly saves a life. The narrator spells it out for us. Tiny Tim did not die. This shows us that compassion isn't just some nice feeling. It has real, tangible, life-or-death consequences. Scrooge has gone from being a source of misery to a genuine force for good.
So let's zoom out for a second and put all these pieces together. When you look at the beginning and the end right next to each other, Dickens' powerful message about social responsibility just becomes crystal clear.
I mean, just look at this transformation. He goes from wanting to decrease the surplus population to becoming a second father. From saying he can't afford to make people merry to promising, I'll raise your salary. From being solitary as an oyster to being as merry as a schoolboy. It's the ultimate journey from selfishness and isolation to community and compassion.
Right, so what does all this mean for you when you're staring at a blank page, trying to write your essay? Let's break down the key points you can take away from all this.
Here is your game plan. First, use these quotes we've talked about as your direct evidence. For top marks, you'll want to directly contrast his words and actions in Stave 1 with what he does and says in Stave 5. And don't forget, make sure you link his selfishness at the beginning to Dickens' bigger criticism of Victorian society. And finally, really dig into the language. Analyze those similes like oyster and flint to show that you understand exactly how Dickens is revealing Scrooge's inner world.
We'll end with this thought. Dickens didn't write A Christmas Carol just to tell a spooky ghost story. He wrote it to make an argument, to challenge the society he was living in. And by showing us how one man can be so completely redeemed, he proves that a single powerful story can inspire us to think about our own responsibility to each other, a question that is still being asked for generations.